Okay, so as you can see, we're in a really big bank of vocab here, and I'm gonna draw some of these, but I'm also going to review some of these down in the examples, okay? So again, pause me so that you can write these down, but let's go ahead and dive into these. So the degrees in a circle, you guys should know this, all right? So the degrees of a circle is 360 degrees, all right? So that's the big thing. So the next part is a central angle, and there's two components of a central angle, all right? The first component is that the vertex is the center of the circle, and the sides are radii of the circle. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a picture of this, okay? So I know, again, I don't have a lot of room, but I'm going to go in this little area right here, and I'm going to draw my circle, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and mark my center, so that's the center of my circle. And what I want to do is I want to draw, all right, the central angle. So what a central angle is going to have is it's going to have the sides of that, or the vertex of that angle is the center, all right? So then now the sides are radii, which means that they're coming to the outside of the circle, and that right there is a central angle, all right? So this blue angle is the central angle, okay? And those have to be the two components, all right? It has to have the center of the circle as its vertex, and the sides have to be radii of the circle, okay? Now, it then says that the measure of the central angle has to equal the measure of the corresponding arc, all right? And we'll get to that in a second. But really quickly, all right, if this angle right here is, let's say that this is 90 or 89 degrees, all right? So if that angle right there is 89 degrees, what we're going to be talking about in a second is the arc that it creates, all right? And that arc is going to be this measure right here. Actually, I'm going to highlight it. Okay, so I'm looking at this arc that it creates, and those are going to match. All right, and again, I know I haven't talked about arcs yet, but if that angle is 89 degrees, then this arc also equals 89 degrees. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind in a second. So then what is an arc? All right, so what an arc is, it's an unbroken part of a circle. All right, so an unbroken part of a circle. And so if I would draw again, all right, my circle. So here's my circle. I'm going to mark my center. But then what I'm going to do, though, is I'm now going to put 2 points, all right, along that arc. I'm sorry, along that circle. And then what I'm looking for my arc is this area right here. So what I'm drawing in purple right here, all right, is my arc. Okay, so that's an unbroken part of the circle. Just like a line segment is part of a line, all right, this arc is part of a circle. Now, we have 3 different types of arcs, okay? So the first one is a semicircle, all right, and it's an arc whose endpoints lie on the diameter of a circle. And then a couple things about it is it measures 180 degrees, and the way that we name it is with 3 points, okay? So again, I'm going to draw my circle. I'm going to draw my center because my diameter has to pass through the center. So I'm going to draw my center, and then I'm going to go ahead and draw in my diameter. So that's my diameter right there. And I'm going to put my endpoints on my diameter, okay? Because then this section right here, all right, so what I'm about to highlight, so this part of the arc right here, okay, is a semicircle. And technically you have 2. I could have highlighted the one below, all right? But if we read, so the measure of that semicircle is 180 degrees. And that should make sense to you with what I talked about right here with the central angle, all right? Technically, this right here is still an angle, but it's a straight angle. So the measure of that angle is 180 degrees, all right, which means that the arc that it creates is also 180 degrees, okay? But if we wanted to name that arc, I'm going to need to put another point, all right, along that semicircle. And now let's go ahead and name those points. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and name this just A, B, and C. So if I wanted to name this arc, I would name this arc ABC. And to show that it's an arc, you put a little arc on top of it. Okay. Now, I could also name it CBA. That's fine. All right. So the order, as long as B is in the middle, it doesn't matter. So a semicircle, all right, is an arc that measures 180 degrees. All right. So then our next two is minor arc and a major arc. All right. So a minor arc is an arc that measures less than 180 degrees. And we would name that with 2 points, okay? And then a major arc is an arc that measures more than 180 degrees, and we name that with 3 points. And we're gonna practice this all in example 4, okay? And then the last one is the sum of the central angles. It just has to equal 360 degrees, okay? So if we added all the central angles in a circle together, it would have to equal 360 degrees. So let's go ahead and practice, all right? What we were talking about with semicircles, minor arcs, and major arcs. So if you look at the first one, it says to name a minor arc. And so what we know is that a minor arc has to measure less than 180 degrees, okay? So I would be looking at this picture, and I have 2 options here. What I can look at is this arc right here of AD, all right? So that arc is gonna measure less than 180 degrees. And so to write that down, all right, I would write it by its endpoints. So it'd be AD with a little arc on top of it. Now, you could also call it DA. That's fine, okay? There's another one in here as well, which is DB. And so DB is another arc, another minor arc, okay? So we name minor arcs with 2 points. Now, major arcs have to be more than 180 degrees, and we name it with 3 points. So if you look at what I'm about to highlight, so I'm going to start here with D, and I'm going to go all the way around to A, all right, and that's a minor arc. But if I keep going now and keep connecting it to B, all right, that right there, this full thing right here is a major arc, okay? So I would name that by the 3 points, and it would be DAB with the arc on top of it. Or I can go in the other direction, and I could call it BAD. All right, now the last one is to name a semicircle, all right? And again, the semicircle has to be with points that are on the diameter. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this segment right here, or this arc right here, okay? And remember, we have to have 3 points for it. All right, so I'm going to call this ADB, so arc ADB, or you can go in the other direction and call it BDA, and there's my semicircle. Okay. So example 5 now, all right, says GJ is a diameter of circle K. Identify each arc as a major arc, minor arc, or semicircle, then find its measure. All right, so let's go ahead and look at GH. So if we look at GH right here, okay, we have to now first identify if it's a major arc or minor arc. And that's going to be a minor arc because it's going to measure less than 180 degrees. But now we have to figure out like how much it actually measures. So if we go back up to this idea of the central angle, all right, remember the central angle has to come from the vertex and, has to come from the center, and the sides have to be radii, right? So what that means, and also I said that the measure of the central angle is going to match the measure of the arc that it makes, right? So if you look at this example, all right, this angle right here is the central angle, all right, because it's coming from the center and the sides are radius, which means that if the measure of that central angle is 122 degrees, then the arc that it creates, which is GH, also has to be 122 degrees. So this arc also has to be 122 degrees. Okay? All right, now, the next one is we need to look at the measure of arc GLH. So I'm going to go to GL all the way up to H now, all right? So if we look at that green one, we know that that's going to be a major arc because it's going to measure more than 180 degrees. And there's two different ways for us to talk about this question, all right? So I'll talk about both of them. So what I could do is I could find the measure of this central angle right here, all right? Which means I would do 180 minus 122 because we're subtracting that from the diameter, all right, or the semicircle. So then this would be 58 degrees. And I would know that this angle right here would have to be 180 degrees. So if I added 58 plus 180, I would get 238 degrees. All right, so the measure of that arc is 238 degrees. The other way I could just do it is I could take 360 and then subtract the 122, and I would get the same thing, and I'd get 238 degrees. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause here, and then we still have quite a bit